Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett at CorbettReport.com.
And I am James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. I got so much anger in me, got no way to take it out, think I'm stuck in the Matrix. I got more of those bars, but the world's first meltdown-proof reactor as well. But first, we begin on this New World Next Week. Qatar's $400 million jet for Trump is a gold-plated security nightmare. James, I'm glad we're talking about this one. The Trump administration is set to accept a $400 million luxury 747-8 from the royal family of Qatar, a lavish palace in the sky meant as a temporary Air Force One. Getting up to presidential security standards, however, could take years and cost hundreds of millions more. Technically, any U.S. Air Force craft carrying the president becomes Air Force One by air traffic control. Biden even took a train informally dubbed Rail Force One because you've seen he couldn't get up the steps to the plane very well. For long-haul flights, presidents have relied on one of two VC-25As, heavily modified Boeing 747-200Bs since 1990. In 2018, Boeing signed a $3.9 billion deal to build two replacements, but missed last year's deadline. But I hear they hit all their DEI goals and also, of course, hit all those whistleblowers. The goal is delivery by 2027. White House says you probably won't do it by 2029. Trump told reporters it would be stupid not to accept Qatar's gesture, that of course becoming the headline that most of the news places ran with. Plane is expected to be used as a temporary Air Force One, with ownership transferring to his Presidential Library Foundation after his term, a highly unusual arrangement, already raising legal and ethical questions from jealous Spider-Man double memes who are maybe mad they didn't get a jet about accepting such a valuable gift from a foreign power. Again, James, we talk about the two-party system. They're just mad the guy they don't like has all the power they willingly gave to the previous guy. Equally alarming, however, security experts warn that retrofitting a foreign-owned aircraft to meet presidential standards would be massively expensive, time-consuming, and potentially disruptive to the already behind Boeing replacement program. I mean, you'd be stupid not to take a free Trojan horse parked outside your gates, right, James? Now, we wonder, why would they just, I mean, I'd love for somebody to gift me a private jet. Why did they just come with this specific thing out of the blue? Because it's not out of the blue. Nothing's out of the blue. Trump's openly been wanting one. February 19th, 2025, Trump views Boeing as lost cause, empowers Elon with drastic options to ensure faster Air Force One delivery. According to the New York Times, Trump, furious about Boeing's repeated delays in delivering two new Air Force One jets, and has empowered Elon to explore drastic options to prod Boeing to move faster, including relaxing security clearance standards for someone who was going to work on those presidential planes. Trump has even discussed whether a luxury jet could be acquired and retrofitted during the wait. Well, there you go. Ask and ye shall receive. We will include the link, James, to your classic How to Steal an Airplane from 9/11 to MH370. It kind of sounds like it's the setup for a perfect disaster green screen action movie. The president's plane has been remotely hijacked. Can Grandpa Harrison Ford save Air Force One? James, you'd kind of think Trump obsessives would be excited about the possibility of this being a death trap.
Yes, I'm sure some of them would be, but only because they're the kind of fools who believe that the real power really rests in the presidential office or in the presidential position, when, of course, it goes much higher up the chain than that. But, yes, the idea of just accepting, oh, okay, let's just accept this jet and just start flying around in it. Of course not. No, as that Register article goes on in a lot greater detail, in order to actually not retrofit and security upgrade a jet like that they just randomly receive would require tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars more, depending how they do it, and it would probably take several years anyway. They say it might not even be able to fly before 2030, assuming they do adhere to the normal security standards and essentially have to strip the plane completely bare to check for bugs and everything, and much of the original equipment wouldn't be usable anyway. So it's kind of a ridiculous idea in the first place, unless, of course, the real point of this is, as it appears to be, well, at the end of his term, he'll just transfer it to his presidential library, so it will essentially be the Trump's private jet, essentially at that point. Yay, win-win for Trump. But actually, the real story here, to me, seems to be that Boeing side of this story. And the fact that they originally contracted for the new Air Force One in 2018 with an original delivery date of 2024. And that's been delayed to 2027. They say it might even be 2029. I mean, what is happening with Boeing, though? Once the symbol of American industrial might and this incredible, wonderful company, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's obviously serious problems with Boeing in general. But this whole story, top to bottom, is bananas. And I guess this is the new normal, in which Make America Great Again means accepting gifts from Qatar. I don't know. We'll see how that works out with the... but then again, does the gifted jet have the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot? And if you don't know about that, maybe you should watch my How to Steal an Airplane episode.
It really... I know I'm a broken record on that. It really feels like a movie setup. It's like all they had to do was remove the usual standard operating procedures and the plane was remotely hijacked in the sky. It sounds like a terrible idea. The other thing, just from a financial point, which you'd kind of think Trump would know a thing or two about the money, but maybe he doesn't really care about the money. He doesn't have to worry about it. It's like you or we or any of us have been told about repairing an old car or an old guitar. They'd be like, man, it ain't worth it. The amount of money and time you're going to spend trying to get this, just buy a new one. It's not worth it. In other news, Bernie and AOC have been flying around in their very expensive private jets on their Fighting Oligarchy tour. So there is enough Spider-Man double meme lamos to go around on this episode. That's how we get going on New World Next Week, episode 590, a really interesting second story, James. And I usually feel like oilprice.com gives me the paywall dropdown, but not this time, maybe because the story's so interesting. China unveils world's first meltdown-proof thorium reactor. Chinese scientists achieved a significant milestone in clean energy tech after successfully adding fresh fuel to an operational thorium molten salt reactor. Chinese state media has reported. So, of course, there could be a bit of propaganda push behind this. According to Guangmin Daily, the 2-megawatt experimental reactor is located in the Gobi Desert, and the latest milestone puts China at the forefront in the race to build a practical thorium reactor, long considered a more abundant and safer alternative to uranium. More significantly, China has relied heavily on long-abandoned American research in the field. In the 1960s, American scientists built and tested molten salt reactors, but Washington eventually shelved the program in favor of uranium-based technology. Now this quote, "The U.S. left its research publicly available, waiting for the right successor. We are that successor," Project Chief Scientist Xu Hongji said. "Rabbits sometimes make mistakes and grow lazy. That's when the tortoise seizes its chance." That maybe should have been my quote opening at the beginning of the episode. The experimental reactor uses molten salt as the coolant and fuel carrier with thorium as the fuel source. For decades, thorium has been billed as the great green hope of clean energy production, thanks to qualities such as producing less waste and more energy than uranium, is meltdown proof, has no weapons-grade byproducts, and can even consume legacy plutonium stockpiles. That one could blow my mind, because they could use that up in the Pacific Northwest, where Hanford, the nuclear labs, the plutonium storage, leaking and ruining the Columbia River in the Pacific Northwest. James, you talked about this in 2012, the thorium solution with John Kutch, and I will include the link, because I'm the one going, what's thorium? Thorium was discovered in 1828 by Swedish chemist Jans Jakob Berzelius, who, of course, yes, named it after Thor, the Norse god of thunder and war. James, please tell me more.
Gladly. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, as usual, Corbett Report here is over a decade ahead of the curve, so I would suggest people go back and listen to that interview with John Kutch of the Thorium Energy Alliance, and then you can follow that back to the thoriumenergyalliance.com website, where you can find out much more about thorium and what it is and how it works and all of that. But if you want the long story short, I guess we could turn to the yellow journalists at the Hearst Popular Mechanics Press, a thorium reactor in the middle of the desert has rewritten the rules of nuclear power, in which they note that most nuclear fission reactors are fueled by uranium-235, but uranium is not the only heavy metal that can release a tremendous amount of power when its nuclei are split. And then it goes on to talk about thorium-232, which, when bombarded by neutrons, can become protactinium, which then decays into U-233, and that can be used to power a nuclear fission reaction. So you can have a reactor built on this molten salt, which is completely different than the idea of a uranium reactor, which requires active cooling. So a uranium reactor, it gets shut down or disrupted or whatever, it melts down because you need to actively be cooling it at all times. And if the active cooling doesn't happen, now there's a problem. With a molten salt reactor, it shuts down and it just cools down. There is no active cooling method needed or what have you. So it cannot melt down. Plus, thorium, once you crunch all the digits, is something like 99.9% cheaper than uranium, and it lasts longer, and it has less radioactivity, and even its spent fuel is reusable as more fuel, and it can continue operating. It doesn't require being shut down every 18 months like a uranium reactor. It is superior in every conceivable way to uranium. So why then, back in the 1950s, when they were starting to develop these reactors, why did they decide to go with uranium rather than thorium? And there is an answer, and I bet you'll believe what that answer is. Admiral Rickover missed the boat on thorium and doomed us all. This is a 2014 article from energyandcapital.com that I'll throw in that goes on to explain that, yes, Admiral Rickover of the U.S. Navy, the father of the nuclear navy, decided on uranium for a number of reasons, one of which because, in the Navy, they don't have to worry about having access to water to cool a reaction if something goes down. They're not going to melt down because they're in the ocean. But that isn't quite, that doesn't work quite well on land, as we have found out a few times in the past. So why uranium? Because, of course, uranium is much easier to develop a bomb with. Thorium is extremely difficult. You would not develop a bomb with thorium. You would develop a bomb with uranium. That's why they chose uranium, and that has doomed us all, as this article points out, in many different ways. So we're still recovering from that horrible wrong turn that was taken for very specific military-industrial complex reasons over half a century ago. And hey, it's apparently the Chinese are spearheading this, although there are American companies that are, or at least an American company that's working on their own molten salt reactor. So we'll see if this catches on. But now that Microsoft and Google and everyone else are going to start creating their own nuclear reactors, well, can they at least be thorium reactors instead of uranium? I guess we'll find out.
After you rattled off the list of all those positives, like, oh, well, now we know why they don't use that, because it would be superior. Maybe not exactly the VHS versus beta comparison I was kind of working on, but interesting nonetheless. Where do we go from there on this New World Next Week, episode 590? Well, we check in on Kanye West. From the Times of Israel, which makes this a lot more interesting, I think. James, self-described Nazi rapper Kanye West releases new song, Heil Hitler. You might have heard about this. Kanye West, the anti-Semitic rapper, also known as Ye, posted on social media a music video for a new song titled Heil Hitler, marking the once-celebrated artist's latest regression towards Nazism. All my ninjas Nazis! Ninja Heil Hitler, Ye sings on the song's synth-heavy chorus over the video. 3 rows of black. Times of Israel does capitalize the word black as they capitalize on blacks. Men wearing animal skins and repeating the lyrics. The track ends with a lengthy sample from a Hitler speech, which Ye also quoted on his X account. James, of course I played this on Media Monarchy. If there's something controversial, if there's something people are clutching pearls over, it's like, let's play it. Let's look at it. Let's bust it open and analyze it. It's not going to kill us and infect us listening to 1 2-minute pop song once. Whether you think my work is right, whether you believe that I've been diligent, that I've worked, that I've stood up for you during these years, that I've used my time decently in the service of my people, you cast your vote now. If yes, then stand up for me as I stood up for you. The sample in the song, of course, is in German. Ye, if you didn't know, was one of the most popular and influential musicians in the world before publicly embracing anti-Semitic beliefs in 2022. Since then, he's lost lucrative corporate sponsorships, the support of much of the music industry, and he claims custody of his kids from Kim Kardashian while continuing to spread anti-Semitism despite the occasional promise to stop. Ye aired some of those grievances on the track, which opens with the lines, "Man, they took my kids from me. They froze my bank account. I got so much anger in me, no way to take it out. Think I'm stuck in the Matrix." He then segues into the line, "So I became a Nazi. Yeah, B-word, I'm the villain." Now, interesting. Speaking of planes, this article includes, they have to show file photos of here they are doing other things. Rapper Kanye West shows U.S. President Donald Trump a photograph of a hydrogen plane during a meeting in the Oval Office, White House, October 11th, 2018. As of last Thursday afternoon, the music video was still playable on Ye's X account, though not on his YouTube account. Multiple versions uploaded. This is the thing, James. It becomes the Barbra Streisand effect. Oh, they're trying to take this thing down. Here's 1,000 more people uploading it under bootleg accounts. I mean, it's what you've done. I believe it's what even our buddy T-Lav would do, the sort of secret YouTube streams because he got knocked off of the channels. Ye claimed it had been banned by all digital streaming platforms. Ye's team said the song... See, he still has a team. Ye's team says the song will be featured on his upcoming album, Cuck, which I, of course, get a kick out of because it makes news people and music people have to say these words on the air, which also includes titles like Gas Chambers, World War III, and Hitler Lay, Ye, and Jesus. If you didn't know better, it would almost sound like 80s punk rock. The album art depicts two figures wearing hooded Ku Klux Klan-like robes in different colors, while the art for Heil Hitler shows a swastika-like doodle. I believe he ripped off the cover arts. The original photographer is already suing him. The American Jewish Committee quickly, of course, condemned the song because, again, this gives something everybody to kind of, we can get mad about this. This is blatant anti-Semitism, and it's disgusting. CEO Ted Deutsch said in a statement, Ye is profiting off Jew hatred, and the music industry needs to step up and speak out against this obscenity. The song follows a brief effort by Ye, a one-time fashion maven, to sell swastika emblazoned t-shirts online. He purchased a Super Bowl television ad this year to sell the shirts, which is very surprising to me, as they're generally in the business of saying, oh, you can't run your controversial ads on the Super Bowl. Now, what's interesting, take it from the tweets. The libs are going to get mad at Kanye while they normalized Stalin and communist symbols for the last 60 years. And James, in just sort of watching this fascinating train wreck, and again, Kanye, one of the most just fascinating artists, individuals, agent, who knows what they are by this point, just to watch on the media stage. I have wondered from the beginning of all of this crazy anti-Semitic meltdown of the last few years, if getting out of all of those multi-million-dollar contracts was maybe always a big part of this. There's so much legal ramifications and the legal requirements and intellectual property and the licensing and the lawyers and all of it, but you say a mouth sound and it all goes away and you suddenly don't have to deal with any of that stuff. The problem being, I don't really know where you go from there. James, have you been watching any of this nuttery?
Only peripherally. I'm put kind of in mind what you're saying there with the artist formerly known as Prince and his theatrics to get out of his recording slavery contract. But I don't know. I don't know whether or not Ye, is doing this as a shrewd business decision or if this is just, in a sense, I think this is the natural progression of the narrative of the past couple of decades where, of course, the Nazis are absolutely the epitome of the core of the most evil thing you can possibly imagine, and we'll start calling it to everyone who doesn't agree with us. And eventually, what is going to happen as a result of that. Eventually, people are going to start saying, okay, yes, I take that label. All right. And people will start wearing it, simply as the act of defiance, the ultimate act of defiance. You're going to call me that? Okay, I am that. Now what are you going to call me? And I think that's a natural, it's the obvious progression of all of this, but it leads, unfortunately, to the situation where now, people in the independent media space go, oh, okay, well, that's the most evil thing imaginable, so it must be good, because they've lied to us about everything. So the Nazis were good guys, and they were trying to fight the banksters. No, I am here to tell you that the Nazis were not the good guys. They were not fighting the banksters. They were dupes of the banksters at best, and I have a lot more to say about that with receipts and documentation, as you might imagine. And any authoritarian regime in history, fascist, communist, or otherwise, can kiss my posterior. So I think that's the wrong way, but I understand why people go down that road. Well, they told me it's bad, so I'm going to say it's good. Yay! And that's the kind of, dialectic that they always use to pinch us in the middle and get us exactly where they want us, squabbling with each other, rather than fighting the real oligarchs, as always. Anyway, I've never even listened to a Ye album all the way through, so I have nothing to say about his musical talents or lack thereof, but I just see this in the sort of greater cultural context that we're living through in 2025.
The environmentalists all lied, so screw the water and the land and the food. It's that same sort of situation. James, might I suggest listening to Yeezus? It's kind of like a punk album. When he actually sent it out, it was in essentially a blank, empty, clear jewel case with a red piece of tape over it. I kick myself to this day for not taking that promo from the FM radio station back in Portland, man. So it would be, I think it's worth listening to at least once just to sort of experience and see this is what the kids are listening to. I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. But it is a fascinating, fascinating tale on the pop culture landscape, James. And of course, like I've said, I didn't call it media monarchy for nothing. We run newworldnextweek.com. It used to just be the place where we put up the YouTube thumbnail, but they knocked us off of YouTube, so we just started a store instead. Newworldnextweek.com has the DVDs, the shirts, the USBs. New USBs are coming soon. And we also, of course, have the P.O. Box, the American P.O. Box that you can send your goodies, your gifts, your things that you don't use digital banking for right here to New Mexico. And again, you can find all that stuff all in the notes. And I get the exclusive audio of these episodes that I play after my Thursday morning monarchy. That's around 10 a.m. Mountain Time. James, how did the book event go, man?
It went extremely well, but everyone will be able to judge that for themselves because I will be posting up the video in due time. Brock is just getting back to Vietnam and getting back in order, but we'll get that posted up hopefully quite soon, and you guys will be able to see the event if you weren't able to make it, but I'm happy enough. A first real-world, actual physical book launch event. That was something.
I have at least one Media Monarchy member that reached out to say they were there at the event with you. They sent me a picture. I haven't followed up yet with them. But again, yeah, James, it really sometimes has to be about making those real world connections. And it can be scary meeting real people in the real world. But I find I usually, as much as I try and resist it, I usually end up doing a little better and my spirits are a little higher when I've been with real folks. You remember after I had been doing Media Monarchy solo full-time from home after a while, I asked you, I was like, man, do you miss people? This is, of course, before the pandemic when everybody went insane. And yeah, you said you got to go out sometimes just to the coffee shop just to kind of be around a bit of humanity. It's almost like that's what humanity needs. James, that is New World Next Week, episode 590, buddy. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you being there, and I'm looking forward to doing this again next week. Thanks for everything you do.
All right, buddy. Take care.